Welcome to Dr. Mensch, the radio show that takes a real, compassionate look at mental health from A to Z. Join child and adolescent psychiatrist Dr. Gil Lichtshein each week as we explore topics that matter: autism, ADHD, anxiety, depression, OCD, schizophrenia, behavioral challenges, neurodevelopmental disorders, and more. No stigma, no judgment. Just honest conversations, new therapies, breakthrough treatments, and real solutions for real people. Mental health is not a weakness. It's a treatable medical condition, and help is available. Join the conversation now by calling the studio at 888-994-4995, Studio A. This is Dr. Mensch, where hope and healing begin.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Dr. Gil Lichtshein, or I guess AKA Dr. Mensch. Mensch is actually a Yiddish word which means kind of like a nice person. Kind of a little bit of a ploy because I'm going to talk a little bit about my book by that name. I'm a child and adolescent and adult psychiatrist with an office in Boca Raton, Florida. This is the pilot show, and I'm hoping that over the course of these next many shows, I'm going to talk about various topics in mental health. I think that that's become more appropriate given, let's say, over these last 5 years, COVID, just more, lack of a better word, a crazy world that we live in. This country is very politically charged, and so that's leads to a lot of mental health issues. So I'm hoping that in these weekly 30-minute episodes that we could discuss various mental health topics, perhaps answer any questions. I'll also talk a little bit about my book called Dr. Mensch, A Prescription for Evil, which I'll get into in a little bit. But with this being the pilot episode, I figured instead of having guests on from the very get-go, I can talk a little bit about myself, explain a little bit about me and my background, what I do, and kind of why mental health to me became a big part of my life, and that's my career. So, like I said, my name is Dr. Gil Lichtshein. I'm a child, adolescent, adult psychiatrist. I have an office in Boca Raton. I also wear many hats besides having a clinical practice where I treat adults, children, and adolescents with a variety of mental health issues. I also teach at the Florida Atlantic University College of Medicine, where I teach first-year medical students on how to conduct a history and perform physical exams on patients. So this has nothing to do with psychiatry per se. I've been doing that since the medical school originated about 15 years ago. I enjoy doing that. It kind of helps, kind of gives me a sense of educating future doctors of this country. I also do a treatment called transcranial magnetic stimulation, which is a form of what's called interventional psychiatry or neuromodulatory treatment, which is a treatment that uses a device that consists of an MRI strength magnetic coil that you put on a particular area of your brain or your head, and it delivers these repetitive magnetic pulses, and it basically, in an oversimplified fashion, kind of stimulates the underlying brain circuitry. So it's a alternative treatment to medication for those individuals who have not responded to standard or more conventional medication treatments for anxiety and depression. And TMS has, even gotten applications for other uses, although it's only really FDA cleared to treat depression, OCD, and anxiety. I also do a treatment called ketamine therapy through an intranasal administration, which ketamine, or popularly known as vitamin K, is a dissociative drug that people like to use at parties. It's become notorious in the last couple of years related to Matthew Perry, star from the show Friends, who died as a result of essentially like a mega overdose of ketamine, among other drugs. But ketamine, when used therapeutically, is a very safe and effective drug to treat treatment-resistant depression and suicidal ideation. It really has very few side effects, and despite what people may have heard in the news and other types of social media, ketamine is not a drug that's, again, when used in therapeutic doses, that's highly addictive or dangerous. So that's one other aspect of my practice. I also prescribe medical cannabis, again, along the idea of, you want to call them psychedelic drugs or alternative treatments that are being, more used in treating mental health disorders. So that, today, it's more than just simply taking a happy pill or a tranquilizer to treat various mental health disorders. Those treatments still are very effective, but say unlike 15, 20 years ago when treatment options were more limited, we're having now a lot more options in psychiatry in terms of treating mental health issues. And I know when I was in medical school and residency, psychiatrists were kind of, you never touch patients, it's a very non-invasive specialty. But now with ketamine, TMS, treatment that's been used for decades called ECT or shock therapy, there's an area of psychiatry called interventional psychiatry where it's kind of similar to interventional radiology. Radiologists, when I was in medical school, were doctors that would just look at x-rays or MRIs and just sit in a room and read films all day. But now there's a specialty called interventional radiology where radiologists are actually doing procedures. And they're taking over some of the procedures that cardiologists and other specialists were doing in the past. Now, as a psychiatrist, we're not doing that invasive type of procedures, but ECT, TMS kind of requires more hands-on treatment, so we're becoming more interventionists as well. So I kind of wear many hats. I also perform forensic evaluations, which is kind of the interface of psychiatry and the law. And I would say that when it comes to legal matters, psychiatrists are often intertwined. Custody evaluations, competency. A lot of times claimants will claim emotional distress or emotional duress as a result of a particular injury or incident. So I often will have attorneys contact me and want to use me as an expert witness in such cases, and that often entails going to court, being deposed, testifying. So that's another fascinating aspect of what I do. Its time can be quite lucrative in terms of reimbursement, but it's very exhaustive and comprehensive, and when you go to court and testify, you got to really be on top of your game, especially when you get cross-examined by opposing counsel. They want to get under your skin or try to question or put doubt into your testimony, so you got to be really sharp and on top of your game and kind of know how to play the game, so to speak, as well. So that's a little bit about what I do. My office, like I said, is in Boca Raton. I have my own practice. I don't have any other psychiatrists I work with, and I really enjoy what I'm doing. Why I got into psychiatry, several reasons. First, the brain is still, even to this day, the one part of our body, the one organ system of our body that's still somewhat mysterious. I mean, I remember medical school and gross anatomy and physiology that, we know everything about the heart. I remember, cardiac physiology class, and they're talking about this artery and this ventricle and that, the atrium and all the different blood supply to the heart and what each heart, what each chamber of the heart does. Kidneys, lungs, liver, we know all that, but the brain is still kind of an enigma. we're still kind of learning about it. The brain it's not so kind of black and white as a lot of the other organs in our body is. So that being said, that kind of got me interested in psychiatry. And I remember when I was a first-year resident and doing rotating in neurology, my neurology attending was trying to kind of persuade me to switch to neurology. And to me, neurology I look at is very similar to psychiatry, but neurology kind of studies diseases of brain structure, whereas psychiatry kind of studies brain diseases that affects functioning. Because again, you take an MRI of a brain of a person with depression, 99.9% of those MRIs are normal. They're not going to find anything structurally wrong. It's more altered brain functioning. So, and we're still learning about that. And then the other part of why I got interested in psychiatry is growing up, having my father suffering from depression for a good part of my childhood, and it only was after his psychiatrist suggested he undergo ECT. This is going back into the 80s, so this is well before TMS and all these ketamine and all these newer treatments. At that point, there was even much more limited amounts of antidepressants available compared to what they are now. So treatment options were much more limited. So he wasn't responding to the types of medicines that were available back nearly 40 years ago. So his psychiatrist recommended him to go to the hospital and be admitted and have ECT, and that changed his life. And so I was able to, kind of see how my dad kind of, I don't want to say change overnight, but, years and years of just debilitating depression kind of lifted in a matter of a few weeks after he, did the rounds of ECT. So those are the two, reasons. And plus, I also enjoy talking to people, and a lot of like surgery and surgical specialties. You don't really develop these intimate relationships with people for the most part. Radiology, you don't. I mean, maybe if you're a primary care physician, but psychiatry also allows you to kind of tailor your practice to being more of a boutique practice where you take time seeing patients regularly. I don't know how many specialists wind up seeing a patient weekly or every other week or once a month for an extended period of time. They may, while they're treating their patient for a particular condition, but once the condition is treated, they may say, okay, come back if you need to, or now I'll see you once a year. But in psychiatry, a lot of times you get to see patients for an extended period of time and really get to know everything about them. And I don't think you really can say that exists in other areas of medicine to the same degree. So those are the reasons what kind of interested me in psychiatry. And if I would say I wanted to do it for the money, I certainly could easily gone into plastic surgery or neurosurgery. But again, psychiatry can be a very rewarding field, even financially. So that doesn't hurt either. But what I most like about what I do is when I get to see patients who come to see me in a worst possible place and get better, and that's very rewarding. Now at the same time, it's also can be frustrating because psychiatric patients can be difficult, challenging, combative, and sometimes are not the most responsive or listen to what their physician tells them. We're going to go to a commercial break for a few minutes, and I'll continue when we come back.
What happens when the mind of a healer crosses over into the darkness of the human soul? From authors David Lacavetti, Dr. Gil Lichtshein, and Yolanda DeLuca comes a chilling psychological thriller, Dr. Mensch, A Prescription for Evil. This gripping novel follows a respected Boca Raton psychiatrist who secretly descends into madness, transforming into a modern-day king of the underworld. Inspired by true events and Dr. Gil's childhood connection to a mob family, this story blurs the line between sanity and evil, genius and destruction. Unforgettable, disturbing, impossible to put down. Get your copy today on Amazon.com. Dr. Mensch, A Prescription for Evil, a 2020 psychological crime thriller.
You're listening to Dr. Mensch with child and adolescent psychiatrist Dr. Gil Lichtshein. For a copy of his powerful new book, Dr. Mensch's Prescription for Evil, visit Amazon.com. For more information or to schedule a consultation, contact Dr. Gil directly at 561-300-4052 or visit docgil.com. Now, let's get back to the show.
Hello again, Dr. Gil Lichtshein, aka Dr. Mensch, back from a brief commercial break. Again, I'm a child and adolescent and adult psychiatrist in Boca Raton. Here with my pilot episode of my show, and the commercial that was just heard was about my book, Dr. Mensch, A Prescription for Evil. And in the course of this show, I'm going to discuss that book and maybe try to bring co-authors as guests, but I'd like to delve a little bit into that as well, and how I got to write a book that the main character was somewhat loosely based on me. So one of my closest friends, who I've known for probably close to 20 years, Italian guy, is originally from Long Island, New York, now was living in Boca, now lives in the Tampa area. Well, his, I would say, claim to fame is that his father grew up in East New York, in Queens, or I believe, no, East New York's in Brooklyn, and was childhood friends of Henry Hill. And Henry Hill, if those who don't know who he is or heard of him, he was made famous by the movie Goodfellas that came out in the theaters in 1990 and had an all-star cast: Robert De Niro, Joe Pesci, late Ray Liotta, James Coco, trying to think of who else, but at least, and it was a story about kind of Henry Hill's take on how he got into this crime family, the Vario family, which was a kind of family within the Lucchese family, one of the 5 families of the mafia. And my friend Adam's father kind of grew up with kind of hanging out with Henry Hill, and through his association with Henry Hill, kind of got friendly with one of the other Vario kind of, I'll say hitman or main earners, Jimmy Burke, who was not a made man because he was Irish, but was a kind of psychotic killer. And so Adam kept telling me about some of this family stuff, and it kind of got me interested. And then over the years, I've actually had a chance to meet some of his family and relatives of actual Paul Vario, who was the patriarch of the Vario crime family. And just listening, and there's one particular family member, his name was Peter Jocko Vario, who was Uncle Paulie's nephew. And he would tell me and this was this kind of like tiny little Italian dude, maybe 5'5", 5'6", scrawny looking guy. You would look at him and you'd think well, this guy's not a mobster, but he was, and he was like a pretty bad killer in his heyday. But would listen to some of these stories. It was kind of fascinating just to understand, how the mafia works. So it kind of gave Adam and I some ideas about creating a story about a doctor who kind of goes dark and kind of, thinks of himself as some sort of mafia king in his own mind. And so we came up with this idea of Dr. Mensch, again, kind of a play on words, where Mensch in Yiddish means a very nice, good-hearted person. Well, in fact, the main character of this book was less than that. He was like a diabolical, sinister kind of psychopath who, slept with his patients, did drugs, just did everything that was unethical and contrary to the, Hippocratic oath of, do no harm and taking care of people, and then kind of got to his head that, okay, he's bigger than who he is, and started thinking of himself as some sort of like, mafia guy. So it's kind of like analyze this and Goodfellas kind of combination. So, they use my character or my life as a psychiatrist was kind of used as the basis of Dr. Mensch. And then my friend Adam's, family history of being in the mob was kind of like the inspiration of some of the like shenanigans and antics of Dr. Mensch. And the cover of the book, kind of Dr. Mensch with this like long beak, kind of goes back to doctors who went around in Central and Western Europe during the mid-14th century, when the peak of the rise of the Black Death, or the bubonic plague that killed like half of the European population. So again, there's a, kind of a little, kind of irony here where, again, a physician who's, there to heal and take care of people, and the pun of using the word Mensch when the main protagonist of this novel is kind of evil and kind of gone mad and kind of gone postal, so to speak. So book's available on Amazon. It's very short read. It's about 120 pages, but it reads very fast because I find it very gripping and thrilling, kind of a little humorous. And so I'm hoping that at some point the main author, his name is Dave Iacovetti, I can bring him on the show. And his claim to fame is that his father was a capo or a underboss for the Gambino family in South Florida back in the 70s and 80s. And another connection is one of my neighbors and where I live in Fort Lauderdale, his father, he knew of Dave because that person's father was indicted together with Dave's father in some federal case back in the 80s. So it's kind of a small world that how things kind of connect to each other. So I'm hoping that I can bring, at some point Dave on, here as a guest, bring Adam, and they can kind of talk a little bit about, their own background. But that's about my book. Back to my interest in mental health. Like I said, I think now that this world has become so more complicated, complex. I see this in kids that I treat. When I was in elementary, middle, and high school, I mean, I didn't do all these extracurricular activities that would keep me up till midnight every day. I mean, I went to school and came home and did homework, and that was it. I mean, I remember applying for college. I didn't have this like glowing resume of this, and this. Like, I went to a small private Jewish day school, and everybody in my school went to either Princeton or Columbia or Michigan or Northwestern or these high-end schools, but there was no such these pressures. It seems like today all these kids are like under pressure. You got to go to Harvard, you got to go to Stanford, you got to go to Yale, or else you're nothing, and you got to have these like 5.0 GPAs and all these all these like stuff on your resume, and you got to get a perfect score on the SATs. I didn't get I was far from perfect on my SATs. I did pretty good in college and in my world. But today's world's a lot different than it was back in the 70s and 80s, and I think that's contributing a lot to mental health issues. the polarizing dynamic that we are in this country. I hear it every day about, I hate Trump, I love Trump, I hate this, I hate that. I mean, that's added to people's mental health issues. I still think we're reeling from COVID and all the fallout from how that was handled. So all that, plus just you listen to the news and all you hear is gloom and doom, and it doesn't help matters. So that's kind of like in a nutshell. And I just kind of wanted to tell people a little bit about me, and hoping that I can just explain a little bit more about mental health as we get into more shows. So again, my name is Dr. Gil Lichtshein. I'm a child, adolescent, adult psychiatrist in Boca Raton. I can be reached at 561-300-4052. Thank you very much, and thank you for listening to me.
Thank you for joining us for Dr. Mensch with Dr. Gil Lichtshein, helping you navigate the world of mental health with clarity and care. If you or someone you love needs support, you're not alone. Treatment works and recovery is possible. To schedule a consultation or discuss non-medication therapies, personalized treatment plans, or psychiatric care, contact Dr. Gil directly at 561-300-4052 or visit docgil.com. You can catch us each week on South Florida Oldies Radio and streaming across all social platforms. Until next time.